Many of today's flights were those diverted to Canada on Tuesday after the attacks in New York and Washington. Travelers arriving at airports are being met by scores of federal marshals, police, and K-9 units, which are all part of these new security measures.
Some of the other things we're picking up on right now, Joey, the New York Stock Exchange will not reopen tomorrow on Friday as had been planned earlier, but rather on Monday. That is now the target date. They'll do some testing over the weekend on Saturday, but trading right now set to resume the usual time, but it will be far from usual, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time Monday morning. Also, the National Football League has made a decision it will cancel Week 2 of the NFL season. All games are off for this weekend. Games set to resume on Sunday, the 23rd of September. Also, Congress has passed a resolution today urging the country to fly the Stars and Stripes for the next 30 days. If you spent much time outdoors, you can not help but notice a lot of folks doing that already, getting several calls here that various outlets across the country giving away flags at times, and several major retailers have run out of those flags at individual outlets. One report said 80,000 have been sold in New York City alone. Also, another note of cities, including Washington. We saw this over the Pentagon and other buildings there today. In words and gestures today, U.S. officials are speaking unmistakably of war.
Now, back on a story that earlier in the days had raised many of our hopes and
on NBC that was aired last night is about my office mate. So I'm just hoping and praying that he's out there safe somewhere in a hospital, just unidentified.
We join you in that. After the first, I'm curious, after the first aircraft, everyone thought it's an accident. The World Trade Center's been hit by an aircraft. It's a possibility people have talked about. It happened to the Empire State Building. After the second blast, when people were knocked out of their shoes, did the conversation then switch to terrorism or sabotage? What did you think had happened?
I didn't know, or I didn't even assume that we had gotten hit by the second aircraft. I thought perhaps it was a residual
explosion
from the first one. It did not even occur to anyone that we had gotten hit by another plane, and I think that's probably what saved us from total pandemonium, to be honest with you. I think had we known we had gotten hit by a plane, I think it may have been a different story as far as us getting out safely and calmly.
But calmness, you said, kind of restoring order. You mentioned last night that people were kind of, you were able to crack a few jokes and tell people that this will work better if it's orderly and if it moves quickly. That's really what saved the day.
Yes, I mean, when we got down to about the 11th floor, I made a joke. I said, let's just pretend that it's New Year's Eve and start counting down. And actually, that's what people around me did. So we yelled out 10. Then we got to 9, we yelled out 9, and that really helped people take their minds off the fact they had just gone down 44 flights of stairs. My legs are still hurting 2 days later, but that is the least of my worries or anybody's worries. I'm just thankful that I got out unscathed from both of these incidents. I was not hurt at all in either one, and someone upstairs looking out for me. That's all I have to say.
Understood. For as many people saying that, we sadly have people that Americans are praying for and praying our hoping to be found. Lolita Jackson, you've been very kind and generous with your time and retelling your story. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian.
Much of the attention today has been at the White House. We heard from the president today.
Did converge on a small rental car company called Warwick's. Records show that Atta rented an automobile at that location between August 15th and August 29th. And during that time, he put a remarkable 3,000 miles on that car, according to the contracts. The FBI also came here, a company called FlightSim in Opelika, Florida. The owner said 3 men, Atta among them, paid cash for 6 hours of flight instruction on a Boeing 727 simulator. Their instructor, Henry George, said, however, they weren't too interested in takeoffs and landings.
What they received was a familiarization flight more than any kind of formal instruction. I don't have any records of exactly what we did, but what my memory what I can recollect from my memory is that we mostly did turns and a couple of approaches. I don't think we did any more than that. It was, like I said, it was not a structure. It wasn't our typical or normal lesson plan.
CNN correspondent John Zarrella conducted the interview with Mr. George. You'll see more of that interview later today. Agents knocked on hundreds of doors today, and other agents from other countries
outside of Washington, D.C. Restrictions just being lifted by the Federal Aviation Administration, but restrictions on travel being imposed in a way that people are going to be very, it's just going to be much more difficult to travel, many more security measures in place. Joining us now are Washington
River on my way to the studio on Tuesday morning, having gotten the call to get in here. I looked down the river and there were the clouds of smoke coming from the Pentagon. And the only thought that occurred to me was the fact that, hey, it is just like Pearl Harbor. And we've heard that metaphor so often the last 72 hours. Well, in some sense, what we're finding out right now, in all the nostalgia about that generation, the Saving Private Ryan generation, all of this, this is this generation's Pearl Harbor. Now we find out what we are made out of. Now we find out, are we willing to make these sacrifices for our freedom, for our security, and for our safety? So it's a very high standard that I think that we have been held up against. Let's hope that we do well.
Ken Allard, thanks as we continue to rely on your good counsel, former retired Army Colonel.
Well, obviously, with the fear, the thought that perhaps Tuesday was beginning to happen all over again. Port Authority, police officers, the Port Authority, of course, is the agency that administers this airport and the other two here in New York. Port Authority police came out and told the passengers, there's no problem, you can go back inside the building, you can wait on your flights. Of course, they were reminded that very few flights are departing from this airport, or for that matter, most airports around the country today, and that they should check with their airlines rather than looking at their tickets for departure times. Now, this happened some 2 to 3 hours after CBS News learned that 3 people were detained in that same terminal at American Airlines. We don't know why they were detained. We do know that authorities here requested that FBI agents come to the scene, presumably to assist in the investigation and possibly to conduct some questioning, but we don't know the status of those 3 individuals. And of course, earlier today, the Port Authority surrounded and detained a Saudi Arabian plane, a commercial 747, and also, we're told, detained the flight crew and the security crew. We were told that they were not placed under arrest, but that the detention of the plane and the crew were made under request from the State Department. A very jittery day here, very high emphasis on security, high alert status for police authorities at this airport, and understandably so. Dan?
Randall Pinkston live at Newark Airport, underscoring that if you have any reason, if you absolutely positively must go to an airport, you think you have a flight, you better check it out thoroughly, but when you go, even for a domestic flight, try to get there 2 hours ahead of time. You perhaps have no idea how much things will have changed at the airports. Now, it's just past 5:30 in the Eastern Time Zone, and among the major developments to report, they found one of the transponders, one of the black boxes out of the hijacked plane that crashed in southwestern Pennsylvania. They've heard sounds from one of the transponders in the plane that crashed into the Pentagon. They haven't found it yet in this collapsed section of the Pentagon, but they hear sounds from what they think is one of the black boxes of the plane that hit there. Vice President Cheney today, quietly, it is reported, went to Camp David, Maryland, so he and President Bush would not be working in the same general area. At the same time, security was lengthened out from the White House, those of you familiar with the White House, through Lafayette Park. Put together, these 2 developments would indicate that as precautionary measures, the Secret Service and other members of law enforcement are still a little bit concerned about the ground support elements of the murderous conspiracy that sent 18 hijackers to the death in the planes, but they had support on the ground, according to the Attorney General, and there's some concern about where those people are and trying to find them. So, for whatever reason, Vice President Cheney is said to have gone to Camp David, so he will not be in the same general working area as the President of the